that there. And before we introduce our guest speaker, just some quick stats. Year to date, we've had 57 sessions, 91 guest speakers. We've had 216 members land jobs, and we have over 2,300 members on LinkedIn and growing, which reminds me, if you have friends who have not yet found us on LinkedIn, please invite them to join. We would be happy to welcome additional members to our fine community. In addition, for those of you who like to dive into details, here's our dashboard. Again, listening to your feedback, the number of members we have on LinkedIn, then company follow. So we do have 2 pages. One is our official company page, the other is our group members page. 132 people on our Teams community, 153 within YouTube. Instagram, we're up to 81, X 27, Facebook 28, and TikTok. We have a way to promote accountability and Hopeful Fridays on TikTok. So if any of you have good ideas about how we might create a viral TikTok video that it enhances people to join accountability and Hopeful Fridays, feel free to share. And now it is with great pleasure that I introduce Mr. Steve Eanes. Steve is a first venture in sales. First venture in sales was at 10 years old, selling newspaper subscriptions in Charleston, South Carolina. This led to reselling candy and socks on the playground. Both shut him down. I'm sure there's a good story there. For the past 29 years, Steve has been in professional sales in the tech industry and has been blessed to finish 26 of the 29 years over 100% of annual quota. Amazing statistics there. An experience with stage 3 malignant melanoma in 2000 was his wake-up call to make a positive difference, not the sale. Being blessed to celebrate the 25-year survivor anniversary in September 2025, when the original 5-year survival rate was less than 30%, has further emboldened him to accomplish this mission. Steve is also blessed to be a GoGiver speaker coach and will share with us a few tips today on how we can fine-tune our job search to land our next great position and also strengthen other relationships we have in our life. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure again to introduce Steve Eanes. And before we let him open up the floor, we always like to ask the very in-depth question. Steve, would you be willing to please share one piece of insider knowledge that many job seekers might not be aware of, but would find incredibly helpful in their job search?
All right, so I'm going to answer that question and speaking for the next 10 minutes, and I do have a timer so we can make sure that we're on time. I've been in Toastmasters for years, so I know well aware of being on time as far as that goes in the first 10 minutes. Before I get started, though, I want to say that I remember meeting Danny when he told me he was looking to start this particular group. And if you know Danny, you know his heart, and it's just amazing to see how things have progressed since AHF first became a nonprofit, became an organization. So very, very commendable on that. So Danny, what a great guy. So what I'm going to share with you today, and there I broke a Toastmasters rule by saying the word so. What I'm going to share with you today, a lot of you may already know this. There might be a thing or two that I say that you might not have looked at in that particular light, but we have a lot of smart people here, so I'm sure most of this stuff is going to be common sense, but it's something that maybe can become more common practice. So I'll ask as I get started here, have you ever heard of this book called The GoGiver? If you haven't, I highly recommend you reading it. It's only 126 pages, very easy to read, very quick read. It's a story of a sales professional who is trying to make quota and work angles, and he ends up learning these 5 lessons or 5 laws. There she goes. Alice has the book. 5 lessons or 5 laws that really help him propel not only his business life, but his overall life, because we only really live one life. We shouldn't have separate lives. We should just be one life. So what I want to do today is just highlight the 5 GoGiver laws and just adapt it a little bit to the job search, because sometimes when we're in the trenches, we can get off track. I'm not saying anybody here is, but we can get off track, and maybe just a little bit of a refocus can help us get back on the right path. So first of all, a lot of people haven't heard the term GoGiver, but they may have heard the term Go-Getter. So how many of you have heard the term Go-Getter, but maybe not the term Go-Giver? A Go-Giver is a go-getter who has shifted their focus from getting to giving. And giving is really focused on providing value to everybody that you meet, every interaction. You want the person to walk away saying, I'm glad I came across them. You're helping them win without attachment to the results. So you're not helping them to get something out of it necessarily. You know you're going to win some way, somehow, and you're focused first on helping others. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go through the 5 laws and adapt it to our job search. So hopefully you'll be able to pick up some helpful hints. So the first law of the Go-Giver is called the law of value. And that's really about your true worth is how much you give in value more than you take in payment. So it's on the value that you provide, not what you receive. So in adapting it to the job search, lead with value before position. Maybe instead of asking, who can hire me, ask, who can I help or who can I serve? It was mentioned a little earlier that someone was able to get a connection to a role because of somebody they knew in their past network. There are people in your network that maybe can benefit from you helping connect them with someone. Maybe you hear about a position that's not the best fit for you, and you can tell them about it. You know, this is common knowledge, so I'm not sitting here claiming to be some big guru. You know, we have incense going around me and, you know, all this baha, woohoo music or anything of that nature. But who can you serve? Sometimes when we take the focus off of ourselves and help others, great things happen. They always happen when we're focused on helping other people first. And sometimes if we're focused on ourselves, 5 minutes thinking about whatever we're going through can take us down a really dark road. And then we're not really in a situation where something great can happen because we're not in that place mentally, if that makes any sense. So focus on providing value to other people. And ask yourself the question, you know, maybe you just call somebody that's in a job search. Maybe there's somebody in this group that you know, and you just call them and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I appreciate you and I believe in you and I know something good is going to happen for you. It works wonders for both people involved in that situation, but especially for the person giving that information or giving that message to the other person. The law of compensation is the second law of being a go-giver. That talks about that your income and opportunities reflect on how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So the more lives you touch through relationships and service, the more doors that open for you over time. So it's simply the more people you serve, the more beneficial it will be for you, not only in income, but in other forms of compensation. It's not just money. Great, fruitful, deep relationships with people could be personal, could be professional. So compensation is really the thunder to values lightning. If you're ever in a storm and you see the lightning, and then a few seconds later you can hear the thunder, they say that the distance or the time between those two events shows how close it is, the lightning and the thunder, right? So your goal is really to get those as close together as possible, but the one that you really control is the law of value and providing value to other people. The third one is the law of influence. I know I'm going quick here. This is like the cliff notes of the cliff notes of the cliff notes, but get a hold of the book and you will be able to read the story and learn a lot more about it, or just look up a summary online on ChatGPT or something. And I'm sure you can find something there. But the law of influence is the third law. Your influence rises when you put other people's interests first. So when you listen deeply and advocate for others, people want to advocate for you. Now, that's not saying that you're a doormat for other people. What it's saying is that when you basically temporarily suspend your self-interest to help others win, you become very influential. So who's the most influential person in your life? I bet it's not somebody that you thought was a doormat, but you thought it was somebody who had your best interest at heart. So that's what we're talking about here. The law of authenticity is the fourth law of being a go-giver. The most valuable gift you have to offer is being yourself. You do not need to perform or impress. Show up honest, prepared, and grounded. Okay? So at the same time, you're not saying that this is who I am. If you don't like it, you can go jump in the lake. We should always be working on our own personal development so that we can be a better, authentic person to other people. How many times have we ever gone to a networking event and we see somebody and they're nice to us? We see them at another network event and they don't even act like we exist. We don't want to be that person. We want to be the person that serves others, focuses on putting their interests first, and is authentic, because people can tell. If you're in the Charlotte area, there's a saying that says people can tell when you auto bail. That's a great marketing tagline that they have. People can tell when you're authentic. They can feel the peace around you. So in the first 4 Go-Giver laws, I'm thankful that we can't do private chats here, because there might be some chats going to Danny and Alice saying, hey, why'd you invite Steve to speaker today? This is not really beneficial to me at all. This is common sense. He told us it was common sense, but it's worse than that. It's super common sense. Well, hold on, because people that live the first 4 Go-Giver laws often have an epiphany at law number 5. Law number 5 is the law of receptivity. The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Giving flows best when you stay open to receiving. So say yes to help, encouragement, and opportunity without guilt or hesitation. There's 4 laws of being a go-giver that's talking about you serving others. And there's 1 law that says, oh, by the way, giving and receiving are 2 different sides of the same coin. How many people serve, and then when they're recognized as volunteer of the year, or somebody's trying to do something nice for them, they say, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You don't have to do that. Why not just say thank you? You're not being greedy saying that, right? What you're basically saying is, I can serve others because now my cup isn't empty. You ever watch The Lion King? And I think there's a saying in there called Hakuna Matata. I don't know if it means this, but the circle of life, giving and receiving. When you receive, we're just conduits for blessings to flow through. If you're a person of faith, we're just a conduit for God's blessings to flow through to others. And if we focus on that, there's not a whole lot of stress in your life when you do that. And you win, and more importantly, you're helping others win. Looks like we're coming up on the 10 minutes, but I'll just summarize real quick. If you lead with value before position, ask yourself, who can hire me? Not ask yourself, who can hire me, but who can I help? You're on the right path. If you detach your worth from the outcome, your identity doesn't ride on the results. You're a great person. Everybody is a 10 in their identity, but your role, you might not be a 10 right now in your role, but you can get there. You're constantly improving. When you focus on living life as a go-giver, great things happen for you, but it's first predicated on you making sure that great things happen for others. So with that, looks like we're probably right about the 10 minutes. So I'll turn it over right now to Alice, and we'll go from there to whatever the next stage is.
Comments